So now let's go through some examples of factoring multiple types of polynomials, where we have to figure out what type of factoring we're doing. Okay, so looking at number 1, I have x cubed plus 3x squared plus 2x plus 6. My first step is always to look for a GCF. And so I'm looking to see, is there any GCF here? Well, they all don't share an x because 6 doesn't have one. And then, since my first term doesn't have a number with it, they don't share a number. So this one doesn't have a GCF. So now I'm looking to see how many terms I have. Well, I see I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So by my chart over here, 4 terms, that means I'm going to factor by grouping. So I'm going to pair these off, and I'm going to find the GCF. So the GCF of x cubed and 3x squared, I see that's going to be x squared. And so when I factor that out, I have x squared. X cubed divided by x squared is x, and then plus 3. And now I'm going to do the same thing with this second pairing. And so the GCF of 2x and 6, well, I see a 2 can go into both, but not x because 6 doesn't have an x with it. So I'm going to put my GCF out in front, and then 2x divided by 2, I get x. 6 divided by 2, I get 3. And I see I have the same binomial here, so I know I did it right. So that means I'm just going to take my 2 GCFs out in front, put them in their own parentheses, and then have x plus 3. Okay, let's look at this next one. This next one I have 3x cubed plus 6x squared minus 18x. So my first step is to factor out my GCF. So here with the numbers 3, 6, and 18, I see that 3 goes into each of those. Now I need to see whether I can take an x out. Well, I noticed that they all have an x with it. So I remember my GCF for my variables is going to be whatever the lowest exponent value is. And so that's just going to be 1x. So it's factoring out my GCF, I have 3x. And what I'm left with when I divide that out is x squared plus 6 divided by 3 is 2, x squared divided by x is x, 18 divided by 3 is 6, x divided by x is 1. And then now I have a trinomial here where my a value is equal to 1. And so looking back at that chart, 3 terms, it looks like this. Then I'm just going to be finding factors of c that add to b. So here my c value is -6. So I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to -6, but then add to 2. Since they're multiplying to -6 and adding to a +2, my smaller number needs to be negative and my bigger number needs to be positive. But here we have something interesting happen. -1 plus 6 doesn't get me 2. And then -2 plus 3 also doesn't get me 2. So this one actually can't be factored any further. And so my answer here is just going to be this. And that's because I can't factor this trinomial any further. Okay, let's look at one last one for this video. So here I have 7x to the 4th minus 28x squared. So I see first I want to look for my GCF as I'm going through the steps in the chart, and I see that for 7 and 28, 7 can go into both. And then for x to the 4th and x squared, my GCF is always that smaller exponent, and so I can take out 7x squared. So I'm putting my GCF out in the front. 7 divided by 7 is just 1. X to the 4th divided by x squared is x squared. 28 divided by 7 is 4. x squared divided by x squared is just 1. Now I need to look and see if I can factor what is inside of these parentheses. Well, I see I have 2 terms here, so going back to my chart, I see when I have 2 terms, I want to see if they're a difference of squares. So can I rewrite it to be something squared minus something squared? Well, that one can be written as just parentheses x squared. Now I see, can 4 be rewritten as something squared? Well, when I take the square root of 4, I get 2. And so that means that this can be rewritten as 2 squared. That's because 2 times 2 gets me 4. And so following that pattern, that means this becomes x plus 2 times x minus 2.